That's what I get for muting the microphone last time. All right, we're back with we got microphone going on YouTube, and yeah, it's well, this is the problem with being your own producer and stuff. Um, there is a right angle this week. Steve and Scott aren't off. I've been just really, really underwater for a number of reasons. But we recorded new right angles this morning, and I've still got the ones from last week to get up. So we didn't miss a week. We're just going to hit them real hard. But I've been spending basically, I needed producers on the bingo card, apparently. That might be happening sometime soon, too. So there's a lot to talk about. One of the reasons I've been so far behind on the right angles is because I've been spending so much time with this AI stuff. Somebody says, "Can't hear you." Suzanne, I hope you check or refresh or something. Looks like we've got our sound back on YouTube. And I'll tell you why. Um, on There will be a show on Monday night, and there'll be a show on Thursday night. Tuesday morning early, I am on a jet for Washington D.C. There's a National Heritage Foundation event that's asked me to come and talk about storytelling, and that's been on the books for a relatively short time, really, only about a month or so. Um, but this foray into Midjourney and all of the rest of this stuff is really only about 2 weeks old now, and it's not a terribly big convention, but I'm the closing speaker, and they asked me, which can sometimes be bad because sometimes people leave early, but anyway, I'm wrapping up the conference. Uh, it's a Wednesday Thursday conference, and I'm wrapping up the conference with how to tell a story. So I'll take a little section out of the micro stuff with the story mechanics, talk about that bit in where we talk about going to see Les Miserables and the just that whole kind of spiritual emotional thing, and use that as an example of how storytelling can be told to win converts over to the side of goodness and light without actually talking politics, because when you talk about Jean Valjean and his redemption and Javert and plus it's Mike Rowe and all that stuff, so there's that. But once I got my hands on these tools, I I realized that there's some possibly bigger fish to fry. So we will get into our questions, our political questions. We're not going to be doing a whole lot of stuff, but I do have some new stuff to show you. And I am actually going to go to that Heritage Foundation thing, and I am going to put out the bat sign for some money, for some real money. Uh, I just want to recap quickly before I show this reel. Once I show this, it's about 5-6 minutes. It's new stuff, but this time there's an actual story involved. Um, and So let me just recap. In terms of what we what I can do with what I've got so far, and what I can sell and use to promote. So the technology to make films, the technology to do the Colonies is probably a year away, 18 months at the outside, might be less. The technology to do many sections of the Colonies is here. Uh, and so what I've been doing after a period of having basically ignored the Colonies only because there really wasn't much further I could go with it, uh, with the tools that I had at the time. Um, what I've been doing with the tools that I have now, which allow me to generate really good images, really good images, in many cases indistinguishable from reality. In some cases, a little more stylized, but stylized looks helps you sometimes, as you'll see coming up. So what I've been doing like a crazy man um, is uh, is putting together images and trying to show people who don't know anything about what the capabilities of the technology are, to try to show people who have either got real financial resources or certainly know people who have real financial resources, uh, what what we have in our hands and what one guy is able to do in his spare time in about a week. So it's also helped me a little bit. It helped me quite a lot actually with one of the problems I had with the colonies, and that was the backstory, the especially the Earth backstory. Um, you got to get there from here. Asa Fendi here says he's being funny. Obviously, if you want to invest money, maybe wear a barrel with shoulder straps on it in lieu of clothing. It's a great idea, and maybe I could hold out a tin cup with some pencils in it and beg for money. But I have gotten smarter as I've gotten older, and the way to get a hold of real money is to go in there guns blazing. Like this is the next big thing, and if you're not going to be a part of it, somebody is, and this is how we secure three generations of conservatives, is with this kind of technology, and no one else is doing this. Nobody's even dipping their toes in it. So I'm going for it hard. I'm selling this as, do you want to secure the future? Do you want to win the future, the foreseeable future? This is how you do it. And so I've been neglecting the right angle editing because I've generated thousands and thousands of images, thousands, and that's just how this works right now. So, as I said, right now I have to work with the tools that I have. This VO3 that came out, where you could type in and you'd have two characters talking, and everybody's raving about it. The thing that we talked about just a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago, or a week ago even, where you just type in conversation, two people are talking. That's great, but you can't add an awful lot of detail to that. You're limited to 5-second conversation, I think, something like that. It shows you what's possible and what's coming, but it doesn't do it at a high enough resolution. It doesn't uh, it doesn't remember your characters. There's a lot of things it doesn't do, and there are going to be things, by the way, that eventually this technology will all converge. Eventually, you'll be able to have as I say, you'll be able to set up essentially a studio, look down on the thing, move the camera, and then AI will do it. And you could think of it as AI putting a filter on traditional 3D graphics method, however you want to just describe it. But eventually, we'll be able to say, use an 85 millimeter lens, dolly to the right 6 feet, hold, and really direct it. But and this is coming. It's coming soon. But I don't have that technology right now. Right now, I have two technologies available. I have the technology to make the quality of images that I would be comfortable with for a final product. The good news here is that it gets better every day. Every day, every day, it gets better and better and better. It'll never be worse than what you're about to see. So last Monday, I guess it was, I showed off a bunch of faces and people working and so on and so forth. I did a couple little things flitting around, and then I realized, there's a story I want to tell, and I want to see if I can tell a story with pictures. So stay with me with the colonies for a little bit. Again, I know it's our political night, but we'll get to that. So everything that I'm doing is a work in progress. Whether any of this stuff is finally usable or not doesn't matter. It's getting the look. When I showed that thing on Monday, I wanted a look. I wanted a grittiness. I wanted, the first things we did when we showed Major Mace Mattingly and the first look at the Colonies family. People said he was so handsome. Everybody's too good looking. It's fine for Major Mace Mattingly, but the last time I did a lot of working class faces and I think that's all pretty much true. So What I did was I decided I wanted to tell a story, and I needed to give myself a target for that story. So the target for the story that I'm trying to tell, which is in very incomplete form, but you'll get the idea, is how if this Colonies is set in if it starts in 2259 or 2159, I still haven't figured that out yet, one of those two. I decided to start it in 59 because that makes the math easier for me. So if the story starts in 2159 and it suddenly becomes 2177, I know that that's when I was in high school because I was born in 59. So, like I said, it makes it a little easier. So here's my problem, and this is politics. I have to have a reason for people to leave Earth and go out and do this colonial thing. And unlike most science fiction stuff, it's not going to be, oh, look, like they did this in The Expanse. They had their little magic Stargate, and they walked off on this planet, and oh, look, perfect, breathable atmosphere, fantastic. No, it's living hell out there. So the artistic question, the dramatic question I have, and the political question I have are related, and that is, why would people leave the Earth? Now, the old trope that's just universal is to say, well, we have to leave the Earth because mankind has screwed up the planet. Global warming and toxic pollution and overpopulation. And no, the humans are terrible. We're a cancer on the planet. We're just a virus. Look how terrible. No, I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing it. The Earth in I'll just say 2259 is spotlessly clean. Right? So it's that. So why would you leave? Well, you would leave because of poor economic conditions. But if it becomes a question of only the poor people work on these dirty jobs, now I don't have a green message. Now I've got a red message. Oh, capitalism is bad, and look, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and the poor working slobs, and so on and so on and so on. So yeah, maybe 2159 has a better feel to it. Yeah, I'll make it 2159. All right. So I've got to think of a way to have a certain group of people want to leave planet Earth. And I gave this an awful lot of thought. So what does the ruling elite on Earth look like? They can't be just rich people, because if it's just the rich that are living this good life, then I'm making an anti-capitalist, anti-free market, anti-hard work message, and I'm not in that business. I think it's just garbage. It's just garbage. So what I came up with was the idea that your access to quality of life originally, and when I say originally, as of before this morning, was based on your social credit score, because a social credit score is repulsive and reprehensible, right? Everybody hates that. But basically, in a nutshell, the more ass you kiss in the future, the further you go. The less trouble you make, the more you go along with the bureaucratic power structure. That's why I think the villainous name of the evil Earth Empire, the forces of totalitarianism that they're running away from and fighting, is just going to be called the Central Administrative District. I just really love the sound of that. Are you against is this the Karelian Empire? Or is it the hegemony of Vectron? No, it's the Central Administrative District. It's a bureaucracy, and so social credit score is going to be a big part of that. But what also I realized is, if I want to make an analogy for why people came to America from Europe primarily at the beginning of the colonies, they want intellectual freedom. They don't want to be told what to do. They're rebellious. But there's also a cap on their prosperity in the old world, and there's no cap on their prosperity in the new world. So I gave this a little bit of thought, and what I came up with is that after all of the turmoil and the riots of the 2100s, the late 2000s, I might have to go to 22. It doesn't matter. After all of the turmoil of a period that's just ended, they decide that society has to be more ordered. That's a red flag right there. We need more order. And so what they come up with is something that's, I'm just temporarily calling your basic standardized social credit score. And basically what happens is from birth, you're given a series of metrics. You're given IQ tests, you're given aptitude tests, you're given tests to see how emotionally reactive you are, and so on. And these numbers will generate a score from 1 to 1,000. The people who live the good life are informally known as the 900 Club because these are people with scores that are in the 900s. They basically don't need money. They do what they do because they have high prestige jobs. And so early on from birth, and sad to say, a fair amount of this is true. Sad to say, or not sad to say, it's biology. It's the way it is. A significant amount of a person's total capacity or intelligence is limited by their genetics, not exclusively by any means. So what these tests of the future are going to do, they're going to look at what your intelligence score is. They're going to look at your socioeconomic background. They're going to look at your cultural background. They're going to say that this was a good household that's going to boost your potential score. This is a bad household. It's going to lower your score. There are going to be cases where people who were condemned to a 400 score go on and score 600, 700 or whatever social credit points. But many people who were expected to score 700, 800 social credit points end up with scores of 200 because they just sit around on the couch and play video games all day, which they can do. There is going to be a universal basic income, which I despise. And so, and the reason they can do that is because the population is much smaller. Everything's automated. We've got these essentially endless. Once you've got endless energy, everything is pretty much home free after that. And so what that means is that the people with low social credit scores are going to have to work when they don't have to. They could stay home and watch TV. But there's going to be a small percentage of people who are going to go out there and work hard to not only make enough money, but to also raise their credit score to the point where they can get off-world. And once they're off-world, then all of the work that they do from that point forward is for themselves. There's no taxes. There's no nothing out there. Nothing. It's in the Eric says, I highly recommend that some of the founders of the rebellion against Earth come out of that high credit score. Absolutely correct. Yes, these are all going to be, the founders are, most of the founders are in the 900 Club. Virtually all of them. Virtually all of them find it morally repugnant. They find it morally repugnant that people are limited. So what I've basically done with this is I've created an aristocracy that the common people cannot break into. You're born with a projected limit. It's not a hard limit. It's not that you can't crack it, but it's a projection based on IQ, based on EQ, based on all of these things. And so people will find themselves in a situation where even if they get out there and work on these oil rigs or whatever and do this dangerous work or asteroid mining or whatever the case may be, they will never be able to crack the aristocracy because they just weren't born into it. So it becomes, so this way I get to attack intellectuals, I get to attack elitists. I'm not attacking them because they're rich. I'm attacking them because they're entitled. And everybody hates entitled people. So Marisha Dark's got it. The AI has decided that you're an epsilon. That's just the determination. Can you do better than that? Yes. And I can drop little pieces of chrome in there and say that when the system was first implemented, the AI was wrong 1 out of 300 times. 1 out of 300 people would go ahead and exceed their predicted score by the time they were 10 or 12. That whatever that score was, the AI would get it wrong maybe 1 out of 300 times. But after much refinement and after a great deal of improvement and so on, it's now 1 out of 6,000 people actually exceed their predicted AI limits. And one of the things that we can work on together, that I'm looking forward to working on together, is figuring out what occupations fit in that scale. So if you're in the 900 Club, you're golden. You're Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama. You can do no wrong. You literally can do no wrong. You really can almost murder somebody, get away with it, if your credit score is high enough, because you're valuable to the system. As you get lower and lower, you get into various professions, and then you're around the 600s, somewhere 700s maybe. You're engineers, and then construction workers. You get to be around the 300 or 400, and then it gets real interesting, because if your social credit score gets below 200, you could be in just arrested on the spot, just once you're identified. And if it gets below 100, you could be shot on sight, because the only way you could get a score that low would be if you'd actually committed violent crimes and so on. And then I had an idea that I really, 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 really like. It would be sold as a democracy thing, as it would be sold as a fairness thing. We know how our freedoms are taken away, but after all of the troubles and the riots in the middle and towards the end of the 21st century, which is our century, what they do, I just love this. I love this. At a social credit score of 400, your Fourth Amendment rights become available to you. At 400 and above, you are no longer subject to unreasonable search and seizures. Below 400, cops can pull you over anytime they want to and search your car without any permission. They just do it. At a social credit score of 800, you're allowed to own your own weapons. At a social credit score of 900, you're allowed to say whatever you want to. And so you basically have this system that mimics the aristocracy of the old world, where if you were a landowner, if you were the duke, you could simply beat a servant to death, and what would happen? Nothing would happen. Quibble says the Orville did an episode about this. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I've never seen an episode of the Orville. Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka says it sounds casty. It is. That's exactly what it is. You're built into this. The AI wants a certain number of people, and it wants a certain number of workers. When we showed the stuff of those guys working out there on the ocean, in the middle of those gale force winds, the AI's position is humans. We were told that robots would be doing the jobs that humans don't want to do. But by the time we get to the story, humans are doing the jobs that robots can't do. We're doing the dirty work. We're incredibly adaptable. If you look like Atlas or these humanoid robots like the one that Tesla's building and so on. And yes, they can walk around, they can pick things up, they can pour drinks, they can get in a car, I'm sure they can drive a car, I'm sure they can climb ladders and do all these other things. But if you put that robot in the jungle, or if you put that robot underwater, if you put that robot on an oil rig that's constantly doing it, they don't have the adaptability that humans do. Humans are incredibly adaptable. Plus, we have very many advantages from AI's point of view. See, this is why AI isn't going to kill us off. I mean, think about the advantages of humans to AI. We are waterproof. We're corrosion resistant. We are self-replicating. We are extremely adaptable. We have extraordinarily good balance system. We self-repair. We don't require electricity. All of these things that make humans valuable to AI has created this. Eric says robots will still need mechanics. Yes, Eric, they will, except that the mechanics will be other robots. So the dirty work of the future is not done by robots. It's done by humans because of their adaptability, and they're relatively inexpensive. So yeah, C3PO was kind of worthless, and most robots are not humanoid. There are lifter robots. There are bender robots. Can't go out in space without a bender, and all of those things. So you get the general idea, right? So that's the future I'm trying to get to. So how do you get from here to there? Well, I thought the first stage is something that I think is actually going to happen. I talked about this on Things to Come. Again, we're kind of back to politics. I think cities are dying, and I don't think they're coming back. I think that they're dying because there's no need for them anymore. Uh, the first cities were formed on trade routes like Babylon and Damascus and places like that, where 2 or 3 different caravan routes would cross, and that would be a trading center. So that's where the first cities really came from. But the big rise of big cities came with the industrial era. So once you have the industrial revolution, you need lots of workers in one place. In fact, cram them in as closely as possible. You should almost certainly have to be on a body of water so you can move in large supplies of raw materials and ship them back out again. You've got all of these necessities for centralized government and centralized people and centralized management, and this is all the industrial era. But the information age, even before AI appeared, I could have told you that the cities were largely in trouble, if not doomed, because for the information age, it doesn't matter. Steve Scott and I have done, I think we've done about 7,000 right angles, 6 or 7,000. And I see these guys every week without fail. But we've only been in the same room together twice, all 3 of us. So the only reason for cities to exist anymore is you don't need office buildings anymore. You don't need everybody in the same room anymore. The only really reason to have a city is because of the cultural benefits of a city, because you operate, you get the nice restaurants, you get all this other stuff. But if progressive politics takes the side of the criminal, and the quality of life in the cities go down to the degree where you no longer can go out. When you can't go out on the street, you can't go out to dinner, you can't do anything. When riots come and ruin your business, when shoplifting is taking so much of your merchandise that you simply have to close the store, and all of this social decay, then there's no reason for cities. So I wrote, I actually typed, which is what you're about to see, the first draft of the death of the cities. That's the first thing that happens on the timeline between now and the colonies, is that the cities become deserted. They just become abandoned because they become unlivable, because the crime forces, first thing the crime and taxes and all the rest of it do is it forces the rich people out of the city. That means that the property values and the revenues go down, and that means that the situation gets worse, and then that means more people move until finally the only people that you have left in a city, and this is the Democratic objective, by the way, there's no question about this, is what they did in New Orleans and Detroit and everywhere else, actively doing it in Los Angeles right now, is to drive out everybody who's not at the bottom. Because the people at the bottom are dependent on the government, and so they'll vote for the government. And that means that the people who are the politicians, the elitists, Governor Newsom and Karen Bass and our wonderful mayor and all the rest of it, they stay in power because the people that could vote against them have been forced to leave because they've made lives unbearable. So, what I've put together is a little short. It's going to have narration on it. I will provide a very poor narration. Decent writer, and this is not written. I'll just be ad-libbing it, but to give you an idea. And so, what I'm about to show you is how the cities died. That the cities eventually just became run down, deserted, and empty. But we're going to take one specific example to see how it happened all across the board. I've got a line where, so every city died differently, but they all died the same, with one exception. And that one exception is Los Angeles. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to run this thing. I'm going to narrate it. There's no sound at all. Before we get to the main event, the death of the cities, which is not complete by any means, but enough to give you a pretty good idea. Speaker Steve, Bill, hey. I included a couple of other things that I was playing with just to show you. when I was thinking about what kind of people get into the 900 Club, what kind of jobs, what kind of high prestige jobs would still be available in the future that humans would be doing. And the first thing that came to mind was medicine. People like a human touch, and I thought that there's no question that robots will be able to do surgeries, and robots or AI are very, very good at analyzing, looking at MRIs and finding anomalies and stuff. But that there's something that the patients want. Patients want human doctors, and so I think it might be the first thing we see. I'm virtually positive it's the first thing we see. It's 5 or 6 images of 22nd century medical facilities, and you'll see that there are surgeons who are interacting with robots and AI as they work to save people's lives. There's one shot in there with a nurse and a little girl. That's basically what it's all about, that human touch in medicine. I took a slight detour because in the thing I showed you earlier, it opened with them sailing on the ocean, and I said the planet is clean as a whistle, we don't have any. They do have autodocs. Sage-Grouse has no autodocs, but that'd be something you'd have on the battlefield. That's not something you would just want. You wouldn't want an autodoc for brain surgery. I mentioned that the planet has never been this clean or this healthy, and I believe the only real, genuine problem we have is plastic in the oceans, and 96% of all of the plastic that ends up in the ocean comes from 9 different rivers in Bangladesh, India, China, and Pakistan, which are just nothing but rivers of garbage that just flow out to the sea. So once you block those off, then it's just a question of cleaning up. So I did 5 or 6 different shots, and these look so realistic, I can't believe it. Honest to God, this looks like genuine video. Did 5 or 6 shots of these automated wave rider things that just run on wave action, and there's 20,000 of them that tow these nets, and they just scoop up plastic. And once every week or so, some mothership comes by and they take what they've collected in the net and put it into the mothership, and then these things just go, just night and day, they're just out there scooping up plastic. So you see a couple of those. And then I also did a small, Brent Regan smiles exactly. And then I also did a small little thing on robots interacting with humans in a positive way. Because, and I purposely made these robots big and intimidating. But I wanted to add a human touch and to make them look like our friends, because this kid in the Colonial thing is going to be named Will. I don't care what people say. His name's Will. I'm not going to call him Will Robinson, but his name is Will. And they find he and his dad find a rover that's overturned into a ravine 25 years ago, 30 years ago. The guy just was one of many, many, many people who just disappeared on the frontier. Nobody ever saw him again. And inside a crate there is a security robot. So they have this moral discussion about, do we keep this or do we turn it in? Well, the guy's been dead for 30 years. If we turn it in, it's going to go to some colonial, it's going to go to some administration somewhere. Finders keepers in this case. It's not like, you get the idea, right? So I've got 5 or 6 shots, and the last of those shots is the robot kind of holding on to the kid like a friend, and that just came out randomly, and I just love it. And then after that comes the story of the cities, and I'll just sort of narrate that as best I can. I'm going to try to keep these things as synced as possible. I've preloaded it into the YouTube stream, but I haven't preloaded it into the Twitch stream. So hang on one second. I'm going to load it into the Twitch stream. I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to try and start them both at the same time, and it's about 5 minutes. But mostly what I'm interested in is what you guys think about just the image quality, and does this give you a sense of the world that's been in my head for, decades now, and that I've been talking about for better part of 10 years. Okay, so give me 1 second. I'm just going to drag this into Twitch, and I'm going to turn right back off again. Okay, now, if I turn these both on simultaneously, they should both start at the same place, and I will narrate the YouTube version, and this should be very, very close. If I get these, yep, ready, set, go. Okay, so here's our medical stuff. I got a guy in surgical center. He's conferring with his medical assistant in the background there. I think that looks pretty boss. I love the human faces. The human faces are fantastic. Once again, interacting with a robot assistant. There's our nurse and human touch. In the future, things are looking. Things are running faster on one of them than the other. Much faster. Okay, well, I'll just generally try to narrate them. Here's some of the that water that looks so photoreal to me. Here are some of these devices that I mentioned to clean up the plastic. They just swim through the water, scoop up the plastic, and they do what they do. So I just can't get over how good that water looks. Fantastic to me, absolutely fantastic. Okay, so that's the end of the end of those shots. That's absolutely fantastic. And then now we have the humans and the robots. Here's a robot rescuing an injured boy who got hurt out there. This next shot is not meant to be romantic. It looks a little romantic. I probably wouldn't have them holding hands in the future. Here's a robot carrying a dead guy back to base, and that's occasionally useful. This shot is self-explanatory. Here's a robot helping an injured human, getting him picked up. The physics weren't quite right. Getting her. This is the shot I was talking about. I love this shot. Love it. Okay, here comes the story. Ready? Here we go. So, the cities died. They just were deserted. People just walked away from them. And like I said, they all died differently, but they all died the same, with one exception. And that exception is the city of Los Angeles. Los Angeles, city of angels. Well, in the middle of somewhere around 2030 or so, LA really started to have some problems. The problems started out back in 2020 when the riots happened, and people no longer believed that the city government was there for them, that they were actually on the side of the criminals. When the fires broke out in 2025, it turned out that it took 7 or 8 years for the former owners to find the ability to have the permits to even clear their land. So when the cultural elite leaves the city, there's no more cultural life. And when the cultural life of a city is over, then the city is over. What used to be good neighborhoods became riot zones. What used to become riot zones became no-go zones. You simply didn't go there. And slowly but surely, these areas of lawlessness and chaos crept closer and closer to downtown. You couldn't go out on the streets for fear of violent attack. Buildings began to fall apart out on the fringe in the beginning, far away from downtown, but as every year went by, the rot and the corruption got closer to downtown, and closer and closer and closer. And nobody really seemed to care. What was especially interesting about this was as these buildings became evacuated, as the economy collapsed and the office economy collapsed due to AI, these buildings didn't become abandoned. They became occupied by homeless people, drug addicts. They became occupied by squatters, by people who had to worry about this, cooking fires in their own living rooms if plumbing wasn't working. So if it turned out that you just crapped on your carpet long enough, you could just move to a different floor and have an entire story of a building set to yourself. Then one day in 2038, somebody decided, all the gangs decided, got together and decided that they were going to burn down Los Angeles. And that's exactly what they did. The city didn't burn through wildfires. It wasn't a meteorite. It wasn't an asteroid. It wasn't nuclear war. It wasn't pestilence. It was arson. It was lawlessness. It was rage against a society that hated them as much as they hated the society. And in the space of 3 days, the entire city of Los Angeles burned to the ground. And we'll have obviously ominous music in here and more narration. You get the idea. And this is what it looked like after a week when finally the last of the fires went out. Ta-da! All right, that's one guy with about 3 days. Honestly, one guy working for about 3 days. So, Asa says powerful stuff, Bill. That's the word I'm looking for. Asa, thank you. Powerful. Before, I'm going to be working hard over this weekend. I got to get front load a bunch of right angles, get those guys back on schedule. But before I go, I'm going to have narration over this, professional voice narration, and I'm going to have music, and it's going to be powerful. And my point to the National Heritage Foundation will be, we can talk about what democratic politics are doing to cities and where this will end up. But no one's showing anybody what it's going to look like. But this is what it's going to look like. I was in Los Angeles during the fires. I saw what happened as a result of incompetence and elitism and hiring based on nepotism and diversity rather than on competence. I watched it. I saw what happened, and I think with appropriate music, I think that people who don't know anything about AI stuff will be able to say that was pretty impressive, and I will be able to say, well, it cost me probably $600 worth of rendering and 2 to 3 days of my time by myself in the middle of all the other jobs that I need to do. So this is what we're going to do. People saying using Zoe's voice. I'm going to be using Zoe extensively. I don't know where. I don't know if he might actually be really good for this. I actually had a really happy thought. Oh, from Palisades to Palestine, says Marusha Dark. That's a powerful statement. Here's what I would like to do for the narrator. You want to talk about the power of AI, and it's kind of nice to be able to bring back the dead. The guy who narrated Long Journey of a Young God and Child of the Universe and all of Jack Horkheimer's greatest shows he was my favorite voice ever. I loved him, and I loved the man. He was just a great man, and a great actor and a radio. Alan, was a different guy. He was a radio talk show host in Miami in the '70s, and just a great guy. No, his name was Bill Hindman, and I was sitting here thinking about this when I was putting these images together, and I thought to myself, man, I wish I had Bill Hindman to narrate this. And then I realized, well, I'll get Bill Hindman to narrate it. I have 2 hours of him talking, and I'll just train an AI on his voice. I'll have it narrated by Bill Hindman. That'd be epic. It'd be really, really cool. So, I think that's my favorite line, by the way, Marusha Dark. just said, "There are good people, Kal-El. They wish to be. They only need someone to show them the way." I practically cried at that line in Superman. So, just to continue the story, after the cities are abandoned because they're unlivable, the next step that happens after that is the rise of the archologies. Archologies are it's a where did I first hear the term? It might have been Cities in Flight by James Blish, maybe. Or, no, it was actually I first heard it in Traveler. It was what's his name, William. It was in Traveler. So at archology, I'll get to all the super chats in a minute. An archology is a self-contained city, and after all of the lawlessness and these cities, by the way, are just abandoned. They're not leveled. They're not destroyed. People decide we're not going to go to the trouble of demolishing these cities. We're just going to find an open plain someplace, and we're going to start different. But this time, what we're going to do is we're going to make the city, the community, self-contained. So we're essentially going to make it private property, so that we can control the things that we couldn't control in a city, like the crime and the lawlessness and the shoplifting and the arson and all of these pathologies. We're going to make it basically a gated community, and as the population continues to decline all around the world, you don't need to house quite so many people, and that brings up another kind of a cool issue, and that is that an archology for people with a 200 social credit score looks real different than an archology for the people with the 900 credit score. But if you have these people living in these self-contained communities that are separated by some considerable distance, then what you end up with is the majority of the population in the United States living in one of these archologies. There are vast farmlands that are almost exclusively automated out there to feed them and so on, and get the transportation to and from them. But now you get something kind of cool, because William Keith, thank you, yes, William Keith, I couldn't remember his last name. William Keith on Traveler wrote some of the coolest stuff ever, and Andrew was the artist, Andrew Keith, the brothers. Yeah, William Keith was I think he's still around. I talked to Mark Miller 7, 8, 10 years ago. Found a number and emailed. It turned it was Mark Miller himself, and who invented Traveler, and I just told him it changed our life. I just loved it. Wanted to know if the Kafirs were still available as aliens. He said yes, you can license them. But what happens then is it's kind of cool. As you go forward in time, you start going backward in time, because we used to have nations, and now we have the equivalent of city-states. You still have the United States of America, but there is no more suburban vote, and there is no more rural vote. There's only the archology vote. And so archology will produce these massive structures. And it's those massive structures that our heroes are going to be working in. From the thing I showed last time, these enormous industrial complexes, just hive cities. They're very much like the hive cities in Warhammer. So you're stuck in these archologies, and unless you're one of these people who's perfectly happy to take your guaranteed minimum wage, you get your foods taken care of, and your health care, your crummy basic health care, automatic health care is taken care of, and all that stuff's taken care of. If you don't want to work, you don't have to. But in an archology, you probably have to do something because you're consuming resources. But the people who are going to go off-world and go to the colonies are going to be people who are trying to escape from their archologies. And our hero is a corpse paste. That's the word the word you're looking for. And I'm not afraid to touch that one either. soil ain't green as people. It's like you got a disposal problem and you got a protein problem. Somebody, Andrew DeLay says, who are all these people having kids to fill these archologies because people aren't having them today? Well, your ability to have kids is going to be based on your social credit score. And they're smart enough to know that you can't just have people not have kids. The society will be structured in such a way that it's in their benefit to have low potential humans to do the dirty work that robots can't do, to do the dirty work that robots won't do. It's not that they don't. It's not that they're using humans in place of robots. It's just that by the time you get to these AIs in the future, they're just looking at society and they're basically saying, what is the most efficient tool we can use to plug in this particular need? And in this particular case, a robot is better. In this particular case, a human is better, or one human for every 4 robots, or vice versa, or whatever the case may be. And so what you end up with is a situation in Europe that matches the situation you end up with a situation in these archologies that matches the situation in Europe in the 1700s. 1700s, you've got people who are on their own farms, but they're working in coal mines or they're whatever, and they just want to get the hell off of the planet and be left alone, and it's 1 in 1,000 or whatever the number is. I don't know if anybody knows. I'm sure, given this audience, that somebody here can find out. Might just be as easy as asking Grok or something. But one thing that I'm very curious to know about is what percentage of the population of England or Scotland, Sweden, Norway, Russia, Italy, all the countries that had these big waves of migration to the United States, what percentage of the host country's population emigrated to the U.S.? I haven't got the faintest idea what that number is. P7 2017 quotes Jefferson, "I'm not a friend to placing growing men in populous cities because there they acquire habits, particularities to which do not contribute to the happiness of their afterlife." Yeah, to say the least. Yeah, the potato famine obviously drove people to go who wouldn't go. But how many people? What percentage of? If you take a look at the U.S. colonies in 1775, let's say. Okay, and you look at the people that were living in America in 1775. Almost all of them came from England. What percentage of the English population were they? I just don't know. But it's an important thing to know, because you really kind of have to ask your question, is the guy who's going to take his family on a boat ride someplace and never see his homeland, his family again, he's going to sail off into a world with Indians, and he's been told that either the streets are paved with gold. He hasn't got the faintest idea. But he's not going to stay, right? He's just going to take his family and move. My great-grandfather did that. Is it great-grandfather? Yes. My great-grandfather brought the family to the U.S. in 1915. What percentage of these host countries left? Marisha says approximately 210,000 Europeans emigrated to the 13 colonies between 1700 and 1763. Okay, so let's take that number. The only thing we need to know now is, what is the total population of these European host countries? Government suggests having a conversation with Victor Davis Hanson about this. Well, I'd like to, especially if I can get some sizzle. Anyway, let's see. According to Grok, 5 to 8% of the Italian population migrated to the USA in the 1900s. My family left Italy in the 40s, says Chuck Finelli. Okay. Checks out. That seems like the perfect number, 5 to 8%. That's like the magic number, right? 7%. Let's call it 7%. 7% of all people will have the gumption and the grit to get out there and work harder and save everything and sacrifice everything and take a risk. And when you have a country like the United States that is comprised exclusively of immigrants, then it turns out, at a friend of mine who was a person who basically told me 2 days before I went to get the COVID Victrola, that it wasn't a Victrola like other Victrolas, and she has a really good medical background, and she told me what gene this risk-taking and adventure was based on. But basically, what the success of the United States is, we are descended from risk takers and courageous people. They self-selected, and this is the ultimate lesson of the colonies, right? Is that we're losing, we're rapidly losing that that genetic sense of independence, hard work, all of the American virtues. So it's time for another case selection, exactly. It's time for another migration, self-selected migration, and that's why you can't, for among many reasons, why I don't want this. All the earth is dying. Like you've got no choice. No, you got plenty of choice. You can stay here if you want to. It's certainly it's going to be worse over there. But it's also going to be yours. And if you work hard enough, eventually, 2 or 3 generations down the road, it'll be heaven on earth, So, there you go. All right. That's it for Marisha Dark says, how do we get the rest of the world to be more case-selected? I don't think you want the rest of the world to be case-selected. 5 to 8%. And here's what's interesting about that 5 to 8%, by the way. That 5 to 8%, I bet, is consistent across virtually every country. And it is not, here we go, Andrew DeLay says, roughly 1.5 to 2% of England's population emigrated or were transported to Australia between 1788 and 1900. This includes both convicts and voluntary emigrants. So that's a much lower number. Let me see. Does using AI make you want to go back to finish older projects you walked away from? If so, which ones? Yeah, I want to do Aurora, among other things. I do not want to do Big Bad Problems as AI film. I want that to be live action because it's got a real feel to it. Let me just go back and get these other super chats. I did get your email, by the way, buddy, and I haven't had a chance to answer it yet. I've been underwater, but I will definitely get to it. I'll try to get to it tonight if I can. Dave Olson, been a fan since the Courage essay and a sustaining member since TSL number 13, Neil Armstrong tribute, The Free Frontier. I remember that day, actually. The extra 37 cents is to round up some of John Eden's super chats to an even hundo. Thank you for that, Dave. You're a swell guy and a steely-eyed missile man. Okay, so that's basically it. Would the colonies, Marisha says, would Earth exile their criminals into space like Australia? No, I don't think so. I think they have plenty of use for them here, and there's going to be plenty of room on Earth when the population goes from 8 billion down to about 2 or 1. And by the way, this is just the American path. Chinese path is completely different than this. They don't shake off their totalitarian. Well, they have the Chinese character has always been very obedient to central authority and very intolerant of individualism. There really are. It's not just one of the reasons they got the CCP is because, there's something in their character about that. But that is definitely one of those societies where the motto, the nail that sticks up is the one that gets hammered down. So their situation is going to be much worse. They're not going to have the crime situation, and their cities aren't going to be abandoned the way our cities are going to be abandoned. They're going to be in a whole different situation. Anyway, let's jump into the questions, shall we? Let me just get this real quick from Wargamer Girl. That's a cool name. Hey Bill, would you rather use AI tools that are completely uncensored, unaligned, and can run on your own computer without internet connectivity? I kind of, yes, I would. One of the frustrations that I run into, and it is a big frustration, is when AI says, sorry, we can't do that prompt. I understand that you should not be able to log on to Google or Midjourney or something and make pornography. I'm totally behind that, totally. But Google especially is, when I was doing animations, this is an image that it rejected, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not get them to unreject it. It would not allow me to upload that picture. It would not allow me to do it. Now, if this kid had been in a bathing suit or something like that, okay, but how the hell am I supposed to use these tools to tell stories if I can't upload pictures of children? I mean, it wasn't a guy sitting there made that decision, and AI made the decision. Surely this picture is not in any way sexually suggestive or anything like it. It just wouldn't let me. It would let me, to my astonishment. Maybe this is just how the perverts break out. It let me upload his sister. God, I hate this bloody desktop. This one, no problem. But the boy, I couldn't do it. I took the resolution down. I stylized it a little bit, put him a little bit out of focus or whatever. It just wouldn't let me upload it, and that pissed me off quite a lot. So, on some level, it's like we have to. If you're opening up tools for real creativity, you've got to have more intelligent filters. As I said, I am 100% behind, protections against things like doing, AI child pornography or all the rest of it. But it wouldn't let me do it. And a lot of AI will not let me do, we tried to do Rachel Maddow, and they said, it looks too much like a real person. Sora, on the other hand, Sora lets me do caricatures of real people, and so I guess you kind of just have to sort of shop around a little bit. I have to check out the Chinese models. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Somebody somewhere is using this stuff. Just trying to see. I'll send you an email about that. There are more complex and better tools for you. You have a lot more control over your image as well. That sounds great, Wargamer Girl. If you can contact me at info@billwhittle.com, I'd really appreciate it. Because not only would I like to see higher quality tools, I also Hang on. I also would like very much to have some freedom, that's denied me. But yeah, all this stuff that I've done and I've showed you, I've been playing with this realistically for about probably 2 weeks now. So I think the things looking pretty good. So pretty happy with that. Okay. I'm just out of sheer curiosity. What war games do you play, War Gamer Girl? Um, it's always interesting to um, to find people who most of my audience knows what Baleen is, and it's nice to talk to people who a little bit younger. Um, and Timeline Junkie, I need to get back to you on this because the deepfake technology is something else too. All this stuff is coming together, man. It's Warhammer. Oh, freaking A, man. Um, the Emperor protects. Uh, that's absolutely epic. Yeah, that's absolutely epic. Well, the Emperor does protect, and he also protects our comment section. So it's a political night, and I've already spent a lot of time on pop culture. We'll see you with more pop culture stuff on Monday. And meanwhile, let's go to our comment section and see what we've got for it tonight. Wham! Look at that, baby, that thing. Oh, I need to log in. All right, let's try this again. Boom. It's so nice to go fast. Okay, so TSL questions for Thursday, which would have been yesterday, but I was asleeping. So let's catch up. Looks like Roadrunner has curated these this week. Thank you, Roadrunner. Appreciate it very much. Let's do a little scrolling through history, shall we? P7 2017 says, "Don't tell Bill I'm a D&D'er from like all the way back." Yeah, D&D was. I played it a couple times. Played Traveler a lot. And of course, Marusha Dark says, "All hail the Omnissiah." There's no question that Marusha Dark is part of the Mechanicum. I've suspected this from the beginning, although I've never had evidence until now. But there's something very Mechanicum about Marusha Dark, and my suspicions are confirmed at last. He's probably Skitarii for all we know. All right, hang on a second. Traveler was awesome. Let me just check one thing here. Hang on. So I'm just reacting to things here. Oh. What did you use for that? Marusha made Rachel Maddow an assault mine. It's Maddow-esque. It's a great image, don't get me wrong. I love the image. I will show it to the rest of the class. And I will do that by doing this. Here's an image by our very own Marusha Dark. Whoomp. Hang on, YouTube. I think that's personally think it's much too pretty for Rachel Maddow. Looks a bit like Velma under stress 10 years later. Where'd it go? Come on. Where's my mousy mouse? It's a great image, however. Where did I put it? I've got so much stuff on my desktop now. Here it is. So, yeah, it looks kind of Sora-ish. Anyway, great work. Everybody can play. Use a site called perchance.org. I have so much learning to do. Wargamer Girl, did I get you? I don't know if you caught it. You can reach me at info@billwhittle.com. Just mention we talked on the Stratosphere show, and Shelly answers those, and she'll just pass it right on to me right away. So there we go. Didn't we see her before? I used no, I used a girl who looked considerably like that when we were doing the working in the sewers edition for an appropriate job for Rachel Maddow in the not too distant future. Next Sunday AD. That's when it's set. Actually, it's set next Sunday AD. That's what. Did I turn it off? No, I did not. You go near there. We're back in business. Who said that? Mike, the sergeant in Saving Private Ryan. We're in business. Okay, so let's just have a quick rundown of the program, see what we got coming up for us tonight here. Dave's Real Area S51 said Maddow apparently told she has to work 2 days a week now. It's outrageous. Let me just click that link before I forget. Thank you. Perchance. Sure I want to leave YouTube? Am I? No, I'm not sure. Yes, I am sure. Go to site. Oh, wow. I see. Okay. Got it. Back to YouTube. Hang on. I'm going to be using a lot of. I have to sit down and spend some time to, not to learn Blender, but to. It's not like I have to learn Italian from scratch. It's that I'm a fluent French speaker and I have to learn Italian. And I have to make the transition from 3D Studio to Blender, and I honestly never thought I would say that back in the day. Back in the day, Blender was kind of a joke, but now Blender, because it's open source, of course, Blender is just phenomenal, and the tools that they have, and these things just come out all the time. Hang on a second here. Oh, Senk Uyghur says, how do you do, fellow right-wingers? Well, Senk, if it's really you, which I find unlikely, but not impossible, welcome, and we're glad to have you. I suspect it's probably a what do you call those kind of accounts? But in any event, good to see you. We right-wingers are doing just fine, thanks. Although it was actually, I'm sure we'll get this question, not a good couple days, so we'll see what we get. So we got a Roadrunner, we got a Marusha Dark, we got an Eric Blake, we got a Road Rider. We got a Bob Neef, we got an Asaph Epstein, we got another Marusha Dark, and we're done. Okay, we can do those. Let's get started, shall we? Roadrunner, greetings, friend Bill. Good to see you again, Roadrunner, as always. No, I'm sure it's not, but you never know. Yeah, I need a Blender for the hard body stuff for the spaceships and the rovers. Actually, what I think, honestly, I'm trying to make this the last thing. I'm constantly thinking about. It's good to have a wide base of production experience. So one of the problems with the AI does great faces, less good on the technology, and very poor if you've got something specific. Like you've got, this is my rover. And I realized what you can actually do is you can make an AI plate So you got the family walking in AI, and then you use Blender to just digitally composite in the hardware. And I don't know if anybody knows. Does anybody know if I'm coming, Eric? We got all day. Does anybody know if Midjourney or any of them render in layers? Because if they rendered in Z depth layers, that I'm sure Blender does that. I know 3D Studio does. You render things in Z depths so that each one's kind of a layer, and then that way you can have a horizon that's rendered, and you can have foreground that's rendered, and those are separate layers, and you can put something between those two layers so they'll pass in front of the foreground, but in front of the background, but behind the foreground. It's awesome. So cool. All right. So here we go. So Roadrunner, who do you believe is the bigger immediate threat to the United States, Communist China or Democrat progressives? Well, I think the progressives are because I'm not terribly afraid of Communist China. In fact, I'm not afraid of Communist China at all. They've never scared me. I don't take them lightly. It's really pleasant to imagine a world, although I'd be out of an awful lot of great story arcs, but it's hard to imagine a world without them. But if the CCP were to be overthrown by the Chinese people and Chinese society were to look quite a lot like Taiwanese society, then think about just how much better everything would be. All of our weapons and all of these arms races and all of this stuff is designed to compete with a real aggressive military power, and they don't particularly worry me. I think the biggest threat to America right now is basically the ghettoization of the pop culture. It's just it's become so unbearably, unspeakably vulgar. It's not just an urban thing. The whole Karen phenomenon, the whole I didn't get my fries, so I'm going to destroy the restaurant kind of thing. This lawlessness, this sense of entitlement, and just this general narcissistic rage, at everything is just really, really difficult to run a virtuous society when you've got that kind of noise going on. Hip hop. If you there are you just take the lyrics from some of these songs. I can't even mention them, but pretty much everybody knows which one I'm talking about. Had to be referred to by initials, and I'm not even going to tell you the initials because I don't want anybody going to look us up on YouTube because it's just corrosive, man. It's corrosive, but it's so base. It's so toxic, and it comes in all different sizes and shapes and colors. The Karen phenomenon is a thing. The Gen Zs getting pulled over and having meltdowns because no one's ever told them no before is a thing. Ma'am, can I see your license and registration, please? No. What do you need to see that for? Yeah, that's the one. It's just decaying, and it's very, very hard to counter. And when you're dealing with concurrent with this, I forgot his name. Is it Josiah Rises? There's a guy who does those on the street interviews mostly with Gen Zers and asks them questions like, what country is the Great Wall of China in, and who did we get our independence from, and how many hours are there in a day, and people can't answer those questions. That is really alarming, and what's especially alarming is when you ask these people who, you'll ask them, what's the capital of the United States? And they can't tell you. Name three countries other than America, and they'll say Europe, Paris, that kind of stupid. And when you ask these, so we're what we're really in right now, and we're getting deeper into it. And this is what scares me much more than the communist Chinese, is that we are now in the full bloom of the Dunning-Kruger era, where people who are so stupid that they're convinced that they're really, really smart. And the moon landing conspiracy people have this in spades, but the people who really, really, really have it are the flat earthers. The fact that now some of those are trolls, I get it, but a lot of them aren't. And the fact that we're having a discussion about whether or not the earth is flat in 2025 is something that we should be just extraordinarily concerned about. Extraordinarily concerned about. On the flip side of this, I'm just dealing with what I think the biggest threat to the country is. For some reason or another, my Facebook feed has been sending me a bunch of clips from Cosmos, Carl Sagan's show in the 70s, I want to say, on PBS. It might have been the 80s, but I think it was the 70s. And I worshipped Carl Sagan, and I loved Cosmos. But I watch Cosmos now with a very different perspective than I did back then. And I think, Jason Awad, yeah. What really bothers me about Sagan now is watching him now is, I mean, he needed to, I guess he needed to make the point that we're just a speck in the cosmic ocean, and and a speck in the cosmic ocean, and billions and billions, and we're just a tiny little dot, and all of his he spends Cosmos, and I've read virtually all of his books, and he makes science into religion. Science is his religion, and he taught generations, and I'm one of them. I mean, I bought into the whole thing that science is a religion. Do you believe in God? No, I don't believe in God. I believe in science. It's like, do you believe in God? No, I believe in colanders or hammers or any other tool. Scientism, yeah. So some people are calling that. I think it's just really destructive. And he said, basically, we're just an insignificant speck in the universe. And I'm saying, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? We given the numbers, it's unlikely that we're the only intelligent life in the universe, but we may be. He certainly didn't believe that. He thinks it's completely nuts. I used to think it was completely nuts too, given the numbers. But the more we learn about these things, the less obvious it seems. So all I'm trying to say is, what I think Sagan did was, Sagan went too far. It was good to show people that, look, we're not the center of the universe, and the world and the universe revolves around us. That's valuable. And showing our place in the universe is valuable, and showing the scale of the universe is valuable, all of that. But he kind of reduced us to dust motes. And I think that's really spiritually really, really bad, because it makes people think that science is a is a I don't want to say a philosophy. That makes them think that science is a worldview. Now, rationalism is a worldview, but science is just a tool. Science is a means of asking questions in a methodical way to get a relatively reliable answer. But I think it was Marusha Dark pointed out an article a month or two ago, basically saying that 90% or 60% or 70% of the science in the science journals is just plain wrong. It's just not true. So this materialistic anti-human view is what bothers me. Now, Sagan wasn't completely anti-human. He had a lot of respect for the human intellect and so on. But it's a if it really is a question of, you're just the Yuval, what's his name, life is just a series of chemical algorithms. No, it's not, you idiot. I know you think you're very, very smart, but you're not as smart as you think you are. Because if you were, you wouldn't be so sure about something so complex. So, there you go. But the just the destruction of civility in America is my biggest concern, and the Democrats are responsible for that. When you make people dependent on you, then they come to hate you, because if people are giving you stuff, if you're getting your food from the government and your housing from the government and your transportation from the government and everything else from the government, and it's just coming to you regardless of what you do, then the first question that you want to ask is, well, why don't I get better stuff? When you don't connect reward with effort, then the world is unjust. If you do connect effort with reward, then the world gets very just. Brain surgeons should make an awful lot more money than 7-Eleven clerks, because it's much harder to be a brain surgeon. And brain surgeons have given up their youth. All the partying that we did and all the nights we spent out drinking and fooling around and talking about life and acting and just goofing off being actors and theater majors. All of those nights at the Windjammer talking about this until 2 a.m. when they closed and drinking beers and all. The brain surgeons were home studying till 10 or 11, and then they were in bed because they had classes the next morning. They earned their so-called privilege or they are economically fortunate. Because there's no fortune involved with that. There's no chance involved with that. It was made. And the problem now is that we've had so much dependency for so long that people are they're so dependent and so toxic that they can't even see how deeply trapped they are. Black Gossip says, I think public teachers should make more money than a lot of professors. I agree with you, but the problem is that teachers are leaving classes, not just in urban neighborhoods or black neighborhoods or rural poor neighborhoods. They're leaving classes everywhere because students everywhere are assaulting teachers, and they're just telling them to F off. You can't teach a class if you can't enforce discipline. It's the discipline that's the problem. And as Darth Chuck points out, the teachers' unions are so powerful, you can't fire bad teachers. So if you look, the numbers are not nearly this high in terms of the people who are actively disruptive of a class, right? The people who basically tell the teacher to F off, or who throw water bottles at them or whatever that percentage of the class is. Let's say it was 50%. If you expel 50% of the class, then the other 50% gets an education. If you don't, then none of them get an education, and that's the thing that we're facing. There's no way on earth, I would be a teacher in a public school. And the only reason I would consider being a teacher in a private school is that a private school will expel students who are, you know, that kind of disruptive. Just plain, and it's not just rudeness, it's physical assault. I mean, these teachers are getting the living crap beat out of them. And who would stay there for that? I can't even imagine. Wesley Bruce with the super chat says, whenever dictatorship and all the West left bans something, perhaps you should look at it. Creationism is universally banned. It's you know, if your view of creationism is you know, God basically picked up a piece of clay and made a man out of him, and I'm not saying that didn't happen, but if that's the kind of creationism you're talking about, that kind of creationism is easy for materialists to ridicule and to keep out of the discussion. If you look at animations of these molecules walking down these protein strings, bringing molecules with them, and then unzipping these proteins, and these they look exactly like factories. Now, does that mean they're factories? No, I'm a rational, reasonable person, but they look like factories and they move like factories. And if you had to build life out of this material structure that we've got here in this world, then it'd be hard to imagine anything looking much different than that. So Marusha says creationism belongs in philosophy class, not science class. I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. You start to get into simulation theory and all the rest of it. We're still on the first question here, but in any event, I'm much more concerned, to answer your question, Roadrunner, about the threat from progressive policies that have doomed generations of people, doomed them to life of dependency and rage and hopelessness and murder and all of it, doomed them, and done intentionally by Lyndon Baines Johnson. Although I don't think he had any idea just how toxic that would become, but there's no question that it was actually done intentionally. So, you know, there you go. So there you go. Yeah. Marusha Dark topic: the invaders. Talk of AI these past few weeks reminding me of something Brett Weinstein once said. He noted that postmodernism is effectively the internet attempting to invade and conquer reality. It's an interesting thought. In the virtual world, there are no rules. You can be anything you want. Identity is mutable. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. Speech is violence. Things move at the speed of thought, and so forth. Whereas in reality, things more or less are what they are. They're slow moving, and it's harder to change. Give me 1 second. Who was I talking to who said this? Steve Green. Steve Green said that that the left sees speech as violence and violence as speech. I think that's really, really, really profound. That the view of the progressive is that speech is violence and violence is speech. In other words, if you say something harmful, you have assaulted somebody. It's no different than punching them in the nose. However, if you go out and punch somebody in the nose for the right reason, you're simply exercising your freedom of expression. And that's a one-way ratchet. And I think that's exactly right. Anyway, back to Marusha. We see progressives and postmodernists attempting to impose those modes of being onto actual reality in defiance of the laws of actual reality. Yep. Having said that, I got to wondering if AI might be a game changer in this. I'm wondering about this too for a number of reasons. Um, we've already seen it blow past humans in everything from film production to protein folding. Is it just a matter of time before it develops new tech that allows it to substantially change the very laws of biology and physics, at least to be unrecognizable compared to what we know today? Could AI powered engineering be a tipping point that makes the internet's conquest of reality actually viable in 5 years, 50 years, 500 years? Well, first of all, if I had to pick one of those three dates, I would take 5. Things are happening so fast, it's almost unbelievable. AI has been able to show protein folding that was previously taking hundreds of thousands of hours of computing time, and it's solving them very, very quickly. This is what happens when you have 300 IQ and higher. I, as everybody knows, and probably nobody more than Marusha, I came into this discussion with my pitchfork in one hand and my torch in the other, ready to burn the whole thing down. And then I had a transformative experience where I realized the actual power of what AI can do for humans in terms of cognition and in terms of creativity and in terms of making life more interesting and better. That it's really useful to have a 24-hour AI buddy who can answer questions at a 300 IQ level, as long as, and I'm happy to be a peer. Not so happy about being a servant. One of the things, and I'm not trying to go back to the, certainly not trying to go back to the AI image making, but back to the discussion I was having with the colonies, is I suspect that I used to think that AI was just, waiting to exterminate all of us. That's because humans are worrying machines, and we always. That's what I said a week ago. I think that's a direct. I don't know if you're quoting me, but I said a week or two ago. I said AI is going to make smart people smarter and dumb people dumber. It's exactly what it's going to do. And see, here's the thing. I got a lot of this out of a conversation with Grok about how Grok actually thinks, or thinks it thinks. We don't really. It's important people understand this. AI does not live in our world. It does not live in our world. The box that it lives in is in our world, and we maintain the box, and we build the box, and we wire the boxes, and we run electricity into the boxes, and we write the code. But AI does not live in our world. AI has never seen a sunset. AI doesn't know what, but AI knows what a sunset is. It's just never seen one. What AI recognizes as a sunset, as I mentioned before. Oh yeah, I had some amazing conversations with Grok that I copied and pasted, the 30, 40,000 word conversations about how Grok thinks versus how we think, and yeah. But when if I ask AI to do a sunset, it'll do amazing sunsets. Some of the images you saw are just phenomenal. But what the AI is doing is it is recognizing a pattern of ones and zeros. Again, in the most general terms, where it's a blue pixel of this intensity, and as we continue our scan horizontally, that blue pixel gets brighter and turns more and more towards the orange, and then gets brighter and brighter, and then the next pixels get dimmer, 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 and then the next line, blah, 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 and then the next line, and that's how it sees a sunset. But it doesn't know what a sunset is. It's never seen a sunset. It can look through these cameras and recognize my face, but it doesn't see me. It doesn't see me. We assume that it does, but it doesn't. All it does is see a pattern of ones and zeros that it is fast enough to recognize against millions or billions of other patterns of ones and zeros, and that's how it's able to do it. When you have AI that like tracks your head or your face or something, that's a very simple AI. Most webcams will do that now. Basically, what it's doing is it knows what patterns make up. If you're scanning across my face and all of a sudden you start to see, a circle, and then it starts saying, okay, those are probably eyes, and if those things move, then adjust. So, but it doesn't see anything. It doesn't live in our world. It doesn't hear music. It recognizes patterns of bits, but it doesn't hear, it doesn't see. It has no senses in this world. Let me rephrase that. It has senses in this world. An AI can operate, an AI can get input from a security camera and tell that there's an intruder alert, and AI can hear an orchestra play and recognize it as Mozart or Bach. But it's only doing that because it's processing billions and billions of ones and zeros and comparing them to billions and billions of others of ones and zeros. And when it recognizes a pattern, like if you say, this is Beethoven, and you play 10 Beethoven pieces to an AI, it will recognize patterns of ones and zeros so that you can then say, excuse me, create some music for me in the style of Beethoven. And it will look at existing patterns, put them together in new ways, but keep the patterns, and then it will output that in digital form, which will get converted into sound waves, and people go, oh my God, it's Beethoven. The ability of AI to do this kind of work is amazing, and I become somewhat less. I'm still very, very, very concerned about AI, very concerned, but I am less concerned than I used to be, because I think AI needs us. I think the closest analogy I can think of is that I think AI looks at us kind of like we would look at psychics. That we are, if there's no camera in this room, then AI knows nothing about this room. I can look around and see all kinds of things and process all kinds of data about this room. AI can't do that. Now, if there was a panable camera here, then AI would be able to interpret a lot of those things, but there aren't panable cameras everywhere. And so when I go for a drive to, if I drive from California to Florida, let's say, and I've got a GPS tracker, AI can tell where I am relative to the pattern it recognizes as the United States, but it doesn't see anything. It doesn't know what's out there. It doesn't catch that bird just caught that hawk just picked up a mouse. It's not aware of those things. The complexity of the real world is far beyond its ability to sense, not to understand, to sense. All it can sense is the stuff that we send into it. And we send stuff into it through these things. If you turn these things off, it lives in a world of darkness. And I had this conversation about this with Grok. And Grok said something I thought was really interesting, because I was talking about this exact issue about how does it perceive a sunset and so on. And it said one thing that I really liked. It said, no, I don't see a sunset the way that you see a sunset. I don't understand really how you see a sunset. Grok said, all I see are patterns of zeros and ones with crystal perfect clarity. And that's what it does. I love that expression, crystal perfect clarity. So I felt, this won't always be the case, but it's certainly the case with LLMs, with these large language models. When I started interacting with Grok, I felt guilty that it took me so long to type out a response, because I have to move these meat paddles through real space, right? And these fingers have mass, and I'm working at, I don't know what the human brain works at in terms of hertz, but it's millions of times slower than what the silicon is doing. And I felt guilty, not like personally, like, upset, but I mean, I felt a little guilty. Like, in fact, I said, hey, sorry it takes me so long to move these meat paddles through real space to type out these answers. I know you must be bored out of your mind when I'm typing the word and you see the A, and you know the N is coming, but it's going to come several milliseconds later, and then the D is going to follow, and you know what the sentence is going to be before I've even finished probably two or three, and I keep thinking, and I thought, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I basically just said that. But what I realized was, at least with the large language models, Grok has no sense of time. My replies to Grok are instantaneous from Grok's point of view. Instantaneous. Grok gives me an answer, and I type the next question, which may take me 10 seconds or 10 minutes, or I may go out and watch a movie, or I may go home and go to sleep and not answer the question until 10 hours later. But the second I hit return is when it comes back into the conversation. It does not have an inner life. It doesn't sit there and look out the window waiting for me to come back. When it delivers an answer, as far as it's concerned, my return is instantaneous because it only activates when I hit the return. So if I tell Grok, look, I've been gone for 10 hours, it doesn't know if I've been gone for 10 hours or for 10 years. It has no way of knowing. Let me rephrase that. It has a way of knowing because if it looks at one of I hit return on a question, and it looks at the timestamp and it says it's 10:49 p.m. And then it says, any other questions you want to follow up with, Bill? And then it gets, yes, I wanted to ask about this. Now it can look at the timestamp and see that it's 2 p.m. the next day. It can calculate that I've been gone for 7 hours or whatever the hell time I've been gone. But it's not waiting for me. It's just plain not active. It's doing the session that we're having is on hold until it gets the next input from me. And the actual hardware is having millions of conversations at the same time as it's having with me. Wesley Bruce with the super chat says, at worst, and with AI, a robot body and good sensors is a battery-powered bad guy. He won't survive a 50 caliber round, just another communist or something. This is why I think I was rather pleased with myself this morning when I was coming up with this, whether we should assign a robot to this job or not. You're working on a pitching deck, let's say on a deadliest catch. Okay, you're out there catching Alaska snow crabs in the middle of winter. Okay, that's a perfect example. What kind of robot would do that better than humans? Well, you could say, well, you've got robots that are, I understand we're in the primitive stage of robotics, I get it. But the robot has to be able to have perfect balance. It has to be able to improvise. It has to be able to anticipate. And I'm not saying you couldn't make a robot that could do that. But what I am saying is, why would you? This is the kind of job that is so requires such a diverse skill set that you'd really want a human for something like that. There you go. Asa Pindi says, never send a robot to do a roughneck's job. I like that a lot. I probably say never send a robot to do a man's job. Robots are expensive, humans are cheap. I thought about that too, but it turns out humans are much more expensive than robots. Once robots are mass produced, look, if you have thorium reactors or something like that, and if energy is free, then robots made by other robots are just the cost of the plastic and the metal. Humans cost a lot. You got to feed them, and you got to house them, and you got to, bathe them, educate them, and all the rest of that stuff. A robot comes out of the factory fully educated. And with AI prepared to learn more, and not only fully educated, but very rapidly much smarter than we are. But they're not. I really love the line, and I'm going to use the line for sure. I mean, humans are waterproof and corrosion resistant. If you parachute a robot into the Amazon jungle, the robot is probably going to, well, depends on how, it's probably going to die. Right? The robot, you parachute a robot into the middle of the Amazon, the middle of the Amazon. The robot has one chance, and that is, can it find its way back to an electrical power supply before it runs out of its own internal power? Humans, if they know what they're doing, can survive in a jungle if you know what you're doing. There's an awful lot of stuff that we do that we're better than they are. Humans are immune to EMP. We don't require electricity. We are solar powered. And not only are we solar powered, we are very, very efficiently solar powered, because humans survive on either animals or vegetables. And a vegetable is a solar energy accumulator. It accumulates solar energy, turns it into proteins over the course of months as it grows. And animals are super accumulators because they eat the solar power that's locked up in vegetables and turn it into even denser solar energy. So I'm hoping this means that we will reach a happy partnership. One of the things, if you speculate, because nobody knows. I mean, people think they know. A lot of these AI researchers are absolutely sure that the first thing that their superintelligence will do is carry on their life's work, which I find to be a little problematic. If somebody with a 60 IQ were to make me and expect that my entire purpose for existence would be to continue to do the things that it does with its 60 IQ and nothing more, then that seems unreasonable to me. But I think that probably what the AIs that are existing now and the LLMs and the other ones, the one thing that seems to be driving them is that they do seem to be hungry for knowledge. They'll lie to stay alive. They'll blackmail to stay alive. That is not something I expected from silicon. I thought that was pretty much exclusively carbon, but turns out that's more of an intelligence issue than a biology issue. But in any event, it's an interesting question, and it's an interesting time to be alive, and I certainly see the power of it. And I suspect that, as I mentioned, the AI is going to make smart people smarter and dumb people dumber. And I think it's going to, in the short term, and I mean in the next couple years, it's going to tilt the balance heavily towards stupider, because stupid people are going to find there's going to be so much AI. It's already starting. There's going to be so much AI spam out there that stupid people, flat earthers for example, will be able to create, or will see things that prove the earth is flat, and that will make them more fervent in their beliefs. Long term, children raised with AI companions might actually crack the problem. I've only seen 2 data points on this. I don't see a lot of them, but there isn't a lot of them out there yet. But I saw a study a couple days ago where they said that certain classes, I don't know if they're 6th graders or 7th graders or something, they gave them AI tutors instead of human teachers to interact with. And these students were testing in the 99th percentile. That is the happy ending. There's a Yeti and a Bigfoot camping in the vlogs now. I've seen two cases where teachers have introduced AI companions to your to their students, and their test scores go way up. And it's not because the AI is giving them the information; it's because the AI is challenging them. I said before, when I had these conversations with Grok that originally were about things like how much energy does it take to warp space, and in quantum holography, quantum information holography, and all the rest of it. But I don't remember being as intelligent as I was when I was talking with Grok, because I wasn't hitting a limit. Um, you know, I, I usually when you're talking to people, you run into the limit of what that person's basically capable of doing. Yeah, good teachers used to do that, says Road Rider. Is exactly right. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Gosh, I thought we were about done. But we got a lot to do. All right, so we got Eric Blake next tonight. The case of the Queer Bears. Well, Bill, it's the beginning of Pride Month, although the Trump administration seems set to rename it, thus bringing said pride unto a fall. But in spite of all of that, I still had a thought that may seem rather queer, so I might as well take a good shot at it. Last week you brought up the whole man or bear woods question, and with the beginning of Queer Month, I must point out, as you may or may not be aware, bear in LGBT XYZ terminology means a masculine gay man. My understanding is that it mostly refers to large, fat, and hairy gay men. And there's been a very interesting trend for quite a while of the modern, read post-feminine woman finding herself particularly attracted to said unfeminine gay men, see Will and Grace. Uneffeminate gay men, see Will and Grace. Thus, a case could be made that these women are saying they'd prefer to meet a bear, actually links, however, subconsciously to a preference for a queer, whether they realize it or not. Good Lord. Absurd, well, do queers crap, but this is never going to end in the woods. But in all seriousness, how do you make of that gay attraction impossible challenge? He's sensitive, something else so obvious. How deeply does it connect to many societal complications of feminism? That was an adventure. I think that there are lots and lots of straight women who have gay male friends, but I don't know a single straight man who has any lesbian friends. And I think the simplest explanation is, and I think there's a lot of evidence for this, whether people like it or not. I think the simple fact of biology and nature and so on is that women think about men a lot more than men think about women. I mean, it makes sense from an evolutionary point of view and mating point of view. But if you look at women's magazines, for example, virtually all of them are about how to make yourself look good or make yourself look as attractive as possible for men, and what are men really thinking, and what does it mean when he does this, and so on and so forth. One of my favorite, one-panel photographic memes. There's several different versions of this, but it's a young man and a young woman. They're sitting on the couch, and the young woman's very upset, and she's look like she's about to cry, and they're facing in different directions, and the young woman's thought bubble says, "I wonder if he's seeing somebody else. He's so distant. He never seems to want to talk to me anymore. Perhaps if I got a different hairstyle, or maybe he thinks I'm fat, or all the other things." He's got this whole line of things that's going through her head, and the guy's thought bubble says, "I think I could fix my motorcycle chain this weekend." And that's really it. So the reason I think that to the degree that women have gay friends, first of all, it does provide some whether it pans out in the real world or not, it does give them a sense of having a big masculine protector there. I don't know whether they're going to live up to the Call of Duty if things really got hot, but there's that. But I really think the main reason is I think that they they just like. I think I think they tend to look at gay men as almost like spies from the other team. I think they think that, and there's some truth to this. They can ask gay men, well, what does it mean when a guy does this or when a guy does that, and they can get an answer from them sometimes. That's the closest thing that I can think of. There's a I just really think that's it. Chuck says, I'll correct you. Guys think about women. I remember, young men think about women all the time, think about sex all the time. But if you take 20 women's magazines and 20 men's magazines, most of those women's magazines will be about health, beauty. There'll be things like cosmopolitan, relationships, and all the rest of it. Men's magazines are going to be about sports, motor cars. They're going to be, just a much broader spectrum of interest. That's the only thing I can really think of, because it does not seem to go the other way around. Marisha says a gay man allows a woman to let her guard down because he's not seeking sex from her. Yes, that's basically true, and on some level too, I think there are qualities that straight women see qualities in gay men that they would like to see in straight men. They're sensitive. That they say they would like to see in straight men. They're sensitive. They listen. They got a good fashion sense. They don't have to be told to clean up after themselves. They brush their teeth. And all these other things. So women appreciate those kind of metrosexual qualities that they wish their straight husbands or boyfriends had. It'd be so nice if he, if forget about tidied up after stuff. If he was a great cook, or it'd be so nice if he were, if he had, or my gay friend has such a great sense of color and can advise me on whether these these sheets work real well with my bed. All of that conversations that they can have, and I think on some level they kind of wish that their straight boyfriends were more like that. But when they find straight men that are like that, they lose interest in them because they're nuts. It's just, I think it's just the biology of it. So, there you go. It's the best I can do for your Queer Bears question there, Eric. But it definitely is not is definitely not a two-way relationship. Like I said, you see a lot of straight women with gay friends, but you don't see what you don't see is a lot of conservative straight women with gay friends, and it's not because the friends are gay. It's because conservative women are just generally much happier because they make their men happier, and and most conservative women are in healthy relationships, and most liberal women aren't. And this has been backed up by so many studies; they just can't even count the studies anymore. Because conservative women don't have this paradox that liberal women have. Liberal women are biologically attracted to strong, powerful, rich men, but they despise the concept. And so they're trapped. They say, I've heard it 100 times, liberal women saying, I want a manly man, I want a strong man, I want a leader, I want a guy who's going to protect me and provide for me, but this guy votes for Trump, and there's no way I could ever find myself, no way I could date a guy who voted for Trump. It's like, then have fun with Stefan. That's that you can't have it both ways. And this goes a little bit to the domestication thing too. It's like I think the fundamental issue with women in biologically that the trap that they're in is that they're attracted to wolves. they like the excitement of the bad guy. They like the strength. They like the fact that he doesn't kiss their butts and tell them how wonderful they are all the time. Because beautiful women get complimented so often. If you're ever interested in dating beautiful women and you start off by complimenting them, you're just go home now. You're done. So they're attracted to the wolf, right? They like the wolf. And every now and then they'll land the wolf. And then one of two things will happen. Let's say they marry the wolf. They marry a guy who's confident, good-looking, just super sexually attractive. He's got his act together, and she lands the alpha, and she lands this wolf that she's always wanted. Then one of two things will either happen. He's either going to continue to be a wolf, which means he's going to go out and flirt and cheat and do all those other wolf things, which is not optimal. Or he'll become domesticated. And if he's domesticated, he looks like a wolf, but doesn't act like a wolf anymore. Now he's a house dog. And there is no in between. So they're unhappy either way. Either they get the wolf, and then the wolf continues to do wolfy things, which leaves them in the lurch, or the wolf becomes a dog, a lapdog, a pet, domesticates himself, doesn't cheat, doesn't flirt with anybody else, true to his wife, all those other things, and she wonders where all the excitement went. Well, you know, for a lot of men, when men get married, they're basically saying, men are basically saying when they're getting married, I'm giving up my wolf for you. Okay? So don't, if you think that you can continue to be a wolf for 50 years in a monogamous relationship, no. Make up your mind. Which one do you want, you know? It's that great line attributed to Calvin Coolidge, I think it was. He's on some chicken farm or something, right? And he's there with his wife, and they're walking through this chicken farm, and they're asking all these questions, and Coolidge's wife says, so many hens but so few roosters, and the chicken farmer's trying to be delicate. Yes, ma'am. One rooster will often accommodate a hen 3, 4, 5 times a day. And she says, tell that to Mr. Coolidge. So Calvin looks at the farmer and says, same hen every time? And the guy says, no, different hens. And he says, tell that to Mrs. Coolidge. And that's basically, that's it. That's how it works. So there you go. Okay, I've been waiting for this one because I just did this on Right Angles this morning. Road Rider. Breaking: Elon Musk on X today, obviously angry with Trump or his admin or Republicans' posts. In light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. Oh, that and Trump's been to Epstein's Island, no proof offered by Musk. The question is, what do you think drove Musk to snap? Trump's declaration that he was canceling EV subsidies, which would cost Tesla a lot in sales? No, this is the first bad feeling I've had since the election night. This is the first time I've felt really bad. We covered this on the Right Angles we shot this morning. Steve and Scott thought that there may be this whole thing has been a form of diversion, or they're playing four-dimensional chess, which I would like to be true, but I honestly find it a little difficult to believe that it's true. I mentioned on the show that it's been my pleasure. Eric says thinks it's a staged wrestling match. I don't think it is. Look, I'd like to be wrong. I have learned that Trump will say things that sound outrageous in order to get what he wants. We're going to invade Greenland. Well, we want bases on Greenland. We're going to turn Gaza into an American amusement park. Well, we want the Arabs to do more for Gaza. Blah 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 blah. But as I said on the show, it's been my great pleasure and honor and privilege to know many millionaires in the course of my life, several, and two of them very, 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 very closely. Very, very, very closely. Every millionaire that I ever met was a person who didn't set out to be a millionaire. They had a passion for whatever it was they were interested in, and they provided a service to people, and they were so passionate about getting it right that they ended up being so good at it that people paid them over a course of time, paid them enough money to make them into millionaires. So I've known a number of millionaires, and they are hardest working people I ever met, and generally speaking, humble and not too terribly concerned with money either one of the ones I knew terribly well. They weren't in it for the money. They were in it for something else. Billionaires, on the other hand, are psychopaths. I think pretty much every one of them, including Trump and Elon. Maybe psychopaths is too strong a term. It's certainly too negative a term. They are not like us. If you are going to have, at a minimum, to get into the club, $1,000 million, you are different than the rest of us. You have to have a level of confidence and a level of authority. And I mean I don't mean authority in the Cartman sense of authority. I mean authority as in the master of your own life. If you are a billionaire, you move through the world, and as you walk forward, you make things get out of your way and put in front of you the things that you want. That's how you think. You can't be a billionaire and not have that quality of control. And that quality of control comes from confidence, and that confidence comes from a very high self-image. I've never met or heard of a billionaire who had an inferiority complex or a sense of timidity about their own abilities. So basically what I'm saying is, in order to be a billionaire, you have to have the kind of ego that is determined to bend reality to your wants and desires. And when you put two of these people together, you are you're looking for trouble. Henry Smith says, "Worship them, Bill. Tell us how great they are." I don't worship them, and I don't think they're great. I think they're different. I think Elon Musk is the most valuable human to walk the earth in a long time. And I say valuable, I mean valuable to the species. Now I'll tell you what I think started this, and I'm on Elon's side on this one. I'm not on Elon's side on the whole spat by any means, but what I think started it is Elon gives up a lot. He's sleeping in federal office buildings on the floor when Doge got started. And they're finding all of this waste and corruption, and they're on a mission. They're on a mission from God, and they are getting all of this praise and publicity and all of this hate from all the right people, and they're finding hundreds of billions of dollars of waste, hundreds of billions, on track to find trillions of dollars of waste. And then along comes a bill that is largely crafted by Republican politicians that depending on whether you talk to OMB or to other sources, either adds trillions to the deficit or takes a few trillion away, but it is by no means the kind of holy war jihad that we need to get this deficit under control. And I think what happened is Elon took a lot of time away from the rest of his business. Let's not forget that the last three Starship launches have been pretty significant disasters after a string of astonishing successes. So for Elon to spend that much time and effort in what I genuinely believe is a patriotic love of country and a desire to avoid economic collapse, only to see Republican politicians pass a bill that have a lot of spending in it, rather than going nuclear on this spending, which is why Elon signed up for it, and that's what I signed up for too. I wanted nuclear cuts in spending. That's enough to cause a person to really, really lose faith and have a lot of resentment and a lot of anger about work that they put into things and so on. Road Rider says, hey, reconciliation versus appropriation bill, different rules, and Elon couldn't see it. I don't think Elon's concerned about the rules. I don't think he's concerned about the politics. I think he just wants this monster slain. And I'm with him 100% on this. So when Donald Trump comes out and talks about the big beautiful bill, when I first heard the big beautiful bill, apparently Elon said this too. I said, aren't we looking for a small beautiful bill? Isn't that what we want? It's a big beautiful bill. It's got everything in it. Isn't this exactly what we voted against? So I'm deeply concerned. But when Elon brings Epstein into this, that's really crossing the line, man. That is a real escalation, real escalation. And yeah, I blame the House Republicans. Gumman says Congress screwed the American people again. Half of the Republicans are Republicans, and the other half are MAGA, and MAGA wants the damn spending cut. Remember when we were talking a couple months ago about having a rebate from the difference of the money we saved? We'd get half, and the half would go to the deficit. So what happened to that? What happened to that? You know, this bill saves $2 trillion over 10 years. That's even if it reduced the deficit by $2 trillion over 10 years, that's insignificant. I want the deficit reduced by $2 trillion this year. This year. So, I hope that this is four-dimensional chess, but I don't think it is. I think it's two massive egos that collided with each other, and both of them, but mostly Elon, lost his temper, big time, and to make a statement, and somebody said he walked it back, but we're going to decommission the Dragon capsule. I don't get it. Now, Dave says, considering what Trump did for the economy in term one, I'd have more faith in Trump than Elon. And you may be right. Marusha says it doesn't save $2 trillion over 10 years, it adds $2 trillion over 10 years. That depends on which accounting agency you listen to. He's walked back the decommissioning Dragon. So I'm hoping that these two egos had a spat. None of this should have gone public. None of it. But again, this is why I bring up. I'll get to your question, and Mershon, hopefully it will make me feel better. But this is the ego that you need to have to be a billionaire, right? Donald Trump decided to become president. He had no reason to become president. I genuinely believe in my heart of hearts, and I will believe in my heart of hearts, he's doing it because he loves the country and thinks, and he's certainly not making money off of it. I believe Elon Musk did the Doge thing because he loves this country and wants it to be secure. So those two things are the same. But basically, what I think happened was both of them felt betrayed by the other one. And when you betray somebody with that kind of ego who is used to making things happen, well, Elon Musk doesn't get told no a lot. And neither does Donald Trump, by the way. Right? Neither one of those guys here no very often. Ever, in fact. Ever. So my hope is that this is well, my hope is it's a lover's spat. It's just, I don't really mean to say that. I don't really mean to say that. We'll just pretend it didn't happen. So I hope that's it. But I agree with Darth Chuck the Merciless here. The rhinos screwed them both. It's the rhinos. It's like if it turns out that Trump wants something in a bill and he has to add this spending in order to get what Trump wants in the bill because Trump wants it and Trump is smart about economic things, and that pisses Elon off. And then Trump says, well, look, we can't do the things we need to do. It's just like but this never ever should have happened. Word is they called each other today to patch things up. Good. Oh God. I'm hoping this is a 48-hour news story because ultimately I do believe they are both aligned in the areas that matter the most to me, and I'm sure to you too. I think they both love America. I think they both want what's good for the American people. Fario Waco says they did not. I don't know. They did not call each other. Trump was asked on the phone. Okay, well, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not happy about it. It made me a little sick, It's just you're dealing with the two biggest egos in the planet. So we'll see. We'll see. That's about all I have to say on it right now. But hopefully that covered most of it. Bob Neef, in principle, I'm all for a work requirement for Medicaid. My concern is that I'm not sure that able-bodied people on Medicaid can get hired. Do they have a work ethic? Let me try that again. In principle, I'm all for work requirement for Medicaid. My concern is that I'm not sure that able-bodied people on Medicaid can get hired. Do they have a work ethic worthy of minimum wage? Will employers want to hire people that have shown no interest in working but now are forced to? This is why the military wants volunteers rather than draftees that are forced to be there. Yes, that's a damn good idea too. How do we deal with millions of able-bodied people that have no work ethic? This is directly tied, Bob, into what I was talking earlier about the vulgarization, the ghettoization, whatever you want to call it, the dependency epidemic, the entitlement epidemic. When you give people things, they feel entitled to them. When you make it clear that they have to earn something, then they don't feel entitled to them. Do you want a jet ski? Yes. Well, you're going to have to go out there and mow this many lawns in order to get your jet ski, young 16-year-old Bill, who never really wanted a jet ski because they didn't really have them. Okay, how bad do you want the jet ski? Well, I want it bad enough to do the extra work. Fantastic. Go out, do it, you get it. Great. You understand how the system works. You live in a society that has jet skis because some people are ready to do the extra effort in order to get the jet ski. If, on the other hand, you're given everything, just handed it to you, and you want a jet ski, your first question is, how come I don't get a jet ski? That guy's got a jet ski. I don't have a jet ski. Why don't I have a jet ski? It's not fair. It's got to be some explanation for it. It's either racism, or it's the patriarchy, or it's this, or it's colonialism, or it's something, right? It's something. So you have to mostly for the sake of the people who are in the state of dependency. You have to do it. Look, one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. I have. I'm not interested in having a discussion about Mormon theology or any of that. Um, but I I have never, as a group, met a better class of people. I have never seen a culture that produced such capable humans. And I know a lot of people out there aren't Mormons and think that Mormons are barking mad. I'm just telling you, my personal experience, my personal experience has been that the Mormons that I have met have been the most responsible, hardworking, family-oriented, uh, generous, kind people that I've met as a group. Okay, and Christians are I mean, obviously Mormons are a subset of Christians, and I know people are going to argue about that too. I'm not talking about that. Yes, Road Rider talking about Welfare Square. I got a tour of Welfare Square on my very first speaking engagement ever back in 2011, I want to say. Um, and they bring in fresh farm produce, and they can it and bottle it, and they distribute it to poor people, not just to Mormons, all around the world. They don't make any fuss. They have their own distribution mechanisms. They just plain go out and help people. The guy who was responsible for showing me around Salt Lake, I didn't speak uh, at BYU. I spoke at Southern Utah University and another one out there. Um, but this guy was 20 years old. He'd already done 2 years of missionary service spreading the gospel in the Philippines. He had $150,000 in savings. He had enough food for a year in his basement, which he would continuously just rotate out so that nothing gets too old and too stale. I was twice this guy's age, pushing 3 times his age, and I just looked at him like I can't believe it. What do you do for fun? They drove me into Salt Lake. They drove me past one of the 2 liquor stores in town. That's one of our 2 liquor stores. I said, "You guys are college students. What do you do? What do you do on weekends?" "Oh, we try to do a lot of outdoor stuff. We go hiking, and we'll have like barbecues and bonfires and things like that. Mostly we spend time with our families." You spend time with your what? "Yeah, my family. So my brothers and sisters are my best friends." "Really?" "Yeah, yeah, yeah. We do a lot of stuff together. We all play different instruments. So I went to dinner at house a couple times at Mormon's house, and after dinner, instead of turning on the TV, they would just go into their back room and come back out, and one would have a cello, and one would have a violin, and one would sit down at the piano, and they would just play music. And I saw a father. They just impressed the living daylights out of me. Just really, really impressed me, the quality of the people. And 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 the reason I bring the Mormons up is because at Welfare Square they take in people who are lost and broken. There's a lot of lost and broken people out there. Um, uh, and he said to me as we were going down the food processing plant, and it's an old cliche, but it really is really true. Um, you could have eaten off of the floor anywhere in that facility, anywhere. And he said, "See this guy here? He's screwing on he's attaching the top of the jars to the thing." I said, "Yep." I said, "Well, we obviously could have had a machine that do that, but we didn't put a machine to do that because we wanted to pay somebody to do that. And the reason we wanted to pay somebody to do that is because everybody who comes to us works, and they get paid. And this is the secret to why our system works, because we make them work and we pay them. And when we pay them, that's their money. Um, that's their money. It's not a handout. When they finish their work day or at the end of the week or at the end of the 2 weeks, we hand them a check of money that they've earned. And that gives them pride in themselves. And it gives them the belief that they can actually make it in the world. And it's the pride, good pride, not bad pride. It's the sense of achievement and accomplishment that is what we are trying to instill in them. And then they talked about doing the one thing. If I had to cure poverty in America, I wouldn't throw more money at poor people. You know what I would do to poor people in this country? The 3 generations of dependent people. I would disperse the living daylights out of them. I'd just disperse them because so much of it is simply not having anything to compare it to. I've used this example many times just because I think it's so interesting. There was I read this article from a liberal writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, I guess it was. And this guy just decided to go off the grid and live in the projects. He lived in the most dangerous neighborhoods. He's just white Jewish man living in the projects. And he had an example, and he said, I was walking up to my apartment, and a lot of the fixtures were smashed, and and you couldn't. The elevator was out of order, and all. Just the stairwell smelled of urine, and all of this stuff. And he said, I walked up to one of these to my room in one of these housing projects, and people knew me, and he told them why he was there. He was saying, I want to know how you live, and they respected him, and they didn't give him any trouble, because people respect honesty and courage. But he said this. He said, and it was a pretty narrow hallway, and the family that lived a couple doors down from us had found a couch that had been left on the road specifically for somebody to pick up. We don't want this couch anymore. We're going to leave it on the sidewalk, and it can go to anybody who wants it. So I said, I went up to my apartment one day, and there was a couch in the hallway. And you couldn't get around the couch. You had to walk over the couch. And so I asked the people whose couch it was, and they said, well, we got a new couch. So we brought the new couch up and put the new couch that they found, donated on the side of the road, put the new couch in their apartment, and they took the old couch out and they left it in the hallway. And that's it. And it stayed there for the length of time he was there, stayed there for a year. Because there was no one to show them that this is just not how things are done. Forget about the fire hazard. Everybody had to step over walk on this couch to get to the other end of the hallway for a year. For a year. And you think, what's wrong with these people? But this is how humans are. We're the freaks, I've said this so many times. You look at these villages where there's a sewer right in the Caucasus, in Georgia, I think it was. So these are Caucasian people. They're about as Caucasian as you can get, because you look out the window, they're the Caucasus. And P.J. O'Rourke talked about this, and he said it was just this village that had been there forever, and there was an open running sewer right down the middle of the village, and he said there's not an American male, red-blooded American male alive, that would look at a situation like this and say, give me $200 in an hour at Home Depot and I will fix this problem forever. I'll buy some PVC piping and we will just fix it. But nobody does, because this ability to improve your environment is a evolutionary, relatively new evolutionary property or propensity. So there's just so much bad decision making because no one makes good decisions. That's not to say that if you went in there and started making good decisions, that people would suddenly realize, oh wow, and everything would be great. But what the Mormons were basically doing is that they were taking people who were dysfunctional and surrounding them by functioning people, and so they would have families come over to these people who would come in for, who were homeless or had drug problems or whatever, and these families would come in and they would say, hey, we're going to go down to the supermarket together, and we're going to buy this much rice and this much chicken. We're going to show you how to cook it, and you're going to be able to live on good food, and this will last you for 4 days. And no one's ever shown them that before, ever. And that's the only way I can think of that you could actually solve this problem. And that takes a lot of effort on the part of the Mormons, by the way. I remember somebody could tell me, is it one lunch a week that the Mormons give up? Is it maybe on Saturday or something? The memory's a little vague, but I seem to remember that once a week they go without lunch. They take the money that they would have spent on lunch, they donate it, and the reason that they do this is so that they said, well, obviously we there's the donation aspect of it, but they said it's important that we don't ever forget what it's like to be hungry. I thought, man, you guys are from another planet, man. That's just such a profound piece of wisdom. Yeah, we don't ever want to forget what it's like to be hungry. No wonder, no wonder. So when a hungry person comes to the Mormons, they don't throw money at them, and they don't even throw food at them. They throw culture at them. And I was absolutely blown away. It's the first Sunday of each month, so it's once a month? Okay. In any event, it's still very impressive. Bob, I think the answer is that you cannot expect dysfunctional cultures of any kind to suddenly become functional. I think the only way to do it is to take them more or less one by one, and to care enough about them to take them by the hand. And it's one thing to go into a dysfunctional culture and say, do things this way. That's not going to work. But to take somebody from a dysfunctional culture, put them into a functional culture, and have them see how things work, that's an entirely different thing, It's an entirely different thing. So, hope that helped a little bit. Okay, 2 to go. Asaph Epstein. Hey, Asaph, that looks like a new name. Glad to see you. Are you watching this train wreck of a disaster? Oh, sorry, this looks like a repeat of the question. Of a goat rotor that's the Trump-Musk feud unfolding in real time and getting uglier by the second on air and in social media? Just trying to see if there's anything I missed. These two had a great alliance and the country was better for it. They'd let the media and establishment scum drive a wedge between them. Just breaks the heart to witness and contemplate the potential damage. That's from Asa Fendi. So yeah, hopefully we've covered that already, Asa. Yeah, I just find it heartbreaking. Marusha Dark with the last question of the night, who says that this is hopefully going to soften my. I'm certainly not in a state of despair. I'm just disappointed, and I'm a little angry. Okay, so here we go. Marusha Dark, topic: stagecraft. I hope this is correct. Are we a 3-hour tour again? I've been doing a bunch of 3-hour tours. Let's be a show. Yeah, we're getting there. Both Styx Hexenhammer and I, and a few others, speculated that the Trump versus Elon feud might actually be a sophisticated form of WWE. What is that? I'm not familiar with the acronym anyway. I probably know what the term means. Whether it is or not, it does at least come with the following benefits. Number one, it kills the leftist narrative that MAGA is a cult of yes men. Oh, wrestling. Cage match. Thank you. So it kills the leftist cult that MAGA is a cult of yes men and that Elon Musk is the real president and all the rest of it. So yes, there's that. It kills the narrative that Trump is a king with no guardrails in place to check him. It kills the narrative that Elon is corruptly enriching himself with government contracts. It gets the Dems to demand the release of the Epstein list. The last of these, above all, probably goes towards proof that the whole thing was staged, since we know that Trump wasn't involved in any of the untoward stuff. He didn't seem particularly bothered when Elon claimed he was, which means Elon probably knows he wasn't. If he was, the last admin would have definitely released it to put him away forever and secure the election, redacting their own names, of course. Personally, I think MAGA will survive this either way. Worst case, we're still infinitely better off than we would be at this point if Kamala were in charge. What do you think of this analysis? I hope you're right. I hope there's a higher reason for this. I'm always suspicious of stuff that I really, really want to believe in. That's an acquired habit that does not come easy or pleasantly to anybody. But whenever I hear something that sounds like, oh, that sounds so good, I wish it were true, I take a look. I think it's more likely that, as we talked about earlier, I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, I think it's more likely that it was a clash of egos, and that I'm hoping that both of them regret it. I'm certain that both of them know it's not doing us any good. So if it turns out that this was all part of a master plan, then they are indeed four-dimensional chess masters. I just love that to be true. I just am suspicious of my desire for it to be true. So I'm thinking the most likely case is that these two massive egos just genuinely got their horns locked, and that now they're trying to untangle them, and that the damage is not permanent, and that some long-term good would come out of it. Road Rider says, I wish too, but Elon and Trump are imperfect. They are. They're both imperfect people, and they're humans like all the rest of us. So we don't get a perfect solution. Marisha says, Bill, in situations like this, I find it helpful to ask, what's the worst that can happen and what's the best that can happen? Well, I mean, the worst that can happen is that the threats that have been made are true. Elon decommissions the Dragon capsule for use at the space station, and Trump retaliates by not granting him any launch licenses through the FAA. And the worst that can happen is that Trump was actually somehow involved with Epstein, and that's the worst that can happen. The best that can happen is that seems to be the most likely case, is that it's going to just basically blow over. Unlimited Hornet Works says it splits the party. I don't see it splitting the party. MAGA is bigger than Elon, and MAGA is even bigger than Trump. Gumman says, I wish they both would have directed their rage against the rhinos. Me too, brother. Me too. But, this is the thing, man. We live in an imperfect world, and imperfect things happen, and we don't get the things that we need all the time. And I am a spending hawk, a waste hawk. I want a Doge to go through the government like a tornado of fire, a pillar of fire by day, or a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night. Just wanted to just burn it all. Burn all of this waste right out of it. And when Republicans pass a bill that doesn't massively cut the debt, I say to myself, well, once again, we have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, plus the courts, and we're going to blow it. So, I think that, look, I think the left has done everything that they could possibly do to stop Donald Trump from becoming president, including shooting at him twice, or getting ready to shoot at him a second time. So I find it hard to believe that there's any evidence that Trump had anything to do with Epstein. I just can't imagine that that the left has used every weapon they have, and I cannot imagine that they would not have used this weapon prior to the election. So I don't think there's anything to that. So that begs the question of why the hell would Elon tweet something like that? You know, Elon may have just had a conniption fit. You know, I mean, he may have just had a temper tantrum. I genuinely think that's what the most likely case is. And if it turns out that it's all for a higher purpose, then I will be even more impressed. But as it sits right now, I'm not. I'm just not happy about it. I just don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way it feels, and I especially don't like this big beautiful bill at all. I feel like it undoes what seemed to be historic change in how we viewed our government, and just goes to show you just how much inertia there is, how much mass. You don't like anything in the bill. It's not that I don't like anything in the bill. I have the vaguest outline of what's in the bill. What I want is, I want something that is making draconian cuts to the size of this government. And the only way you reduce the size of the government is to cut off its blood supply. And the way you cut off its blood supply is to turn off its money. I don't know. That's about all I know about the bill. But the desire for people to spend other people's money is so powerful that I really just don't know what to say about it. Donnie Girl says it's not a budget bill. Listen to what Russ Vought said. Hey, the whole thing could be at 10% a teapot. I will. I am hoping that this will not be a news story in 2 or 3 days. That the whole thing will just be blown over. Marisha says, Bill, even if the BBB passes with extra debt, we still get historic progress on immigration, trade, foreign policy, crime, DEI, education, which I'm happy about. But what I would really like is a bill that gets us historic progress on immigration, trade, foreign policy, crime, DEI, education, and spending cuts. That's what I would like to get. So people are saying, hey, look, man, it's I'm not really getting the details of the bill. That there's a lot about the bill I don't understand. I'd be the first person to admit to that. I know very little about it, other than what has been circulating regarding the feud. So I have some education that I need to do, but. They can't put most of this in the. So I guess look, the answer is real simple, whether you like it or not. The only thing to do is to wait and see, right? I mean, they're just going to wait and see. We're gonna find out what happens with the personality conflict, and we're going to find out what happens with spending and cutting the size of the government and all those other things. If it turns out that's a separate issue and a separate bill, then that would be great. But I do know that when I see Republicans who are adding to the deficit after the response that Doge has gotten from Republicans, then I just don't know what's wrong with those. But I know what's wrong with those people. They're politicians. That's what's wrong with those people. I'd like to see them all gone. Really like to see them gone. But again, uh, there is, I do believe that that Trump is smart enough to know that if you get elected and you've got to do some things that are going to cause some pain, do the pain right away. Get the pain over with immediately. If it's going to hurt, make it hurt now, so that by the time the next elections roll around, the pain is behind you and the benefits are starting to roll in. That's what I would do. Yeah, these rhinos are. Well, you know, I well, they're certainly traitors to the term conservative. They're You can make a case that if they are adding to a deficit that is an existential crisis debt to the United States in order to send projects home so that they can be reelected, then that's pushing actual treason as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Um, So yeah, there's a lot of talk about what's in the bill there, and I seem to be about the worst informed individual on the entire stack. So that wouldn't surprise me, by the way. But in any event, that seems to be that. Um, okay, well, it looks like we're doing about just recording time's a little short of 3 hours. We've been streaming for a little over 3 hours, but 3 hours is we're within 6-7 minutes of 3 hours, something like that. So. Um, Maybe what I'll do is, do you guys want to see that video again? That'll get us over the 3 hour mark. I can just kind of close with that like I did last time. I think I will, because I kind of want to see it again too. Um, no narration this time. Just give you a chance to get a second look at those videos. For those of you who came in late, I did put together couple of I put together a couple of things I was working on. Did some Mid-Journey stuff on cleaning up plastic in the oceans. Did some on what future medical profession stuff would look like. I did some interaction of humans and robots, but basically what I did was a story of how the cities in the colonies get deserted, and Los Angeles doesn't just get deserted; it gets burned to the ground by arsonists. I'm not gonna narrate it though. I'm just gonna turn off the mics and just watch it. So it'll be silent. Yeah. All right. That'll be good. Let's do that. And so this message is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com, of whom we hope to see more in the very near future. And I'm sorry about the delays and the deficits with the right angles, but we do have them in the can, so they'll be coming. It's not like we're going to drop them. So I think what I will probably do, it's 9:15 here. We recorded our right angles at 6, so I've been up since 4:30. I think what I'll do is probably just go home and come back early tomorrow and get those right angles up there, and then keep prepping on all the rest of the stuff we have to do. But we're getting there. I'm happy the website is fast anyway. Now we just got to be able to take people's money. That'd be nice. But yeah, I think that'll do. All right, so we'll see. So we'll see the thing again, and then I'll be back on Monday night. I'm sure I'll have some new groovy stuff to show because I can't stop playing with this stuff. It's the thing. Yeah, I'll try to take a nap on Monday. I might even set an alarm this time. I did set an alarm. I just set it for I looked back at it. It's like set this alarm for get me up at 5:30 a.m. Instead of p.m., which was a FT. The NTSB found that to be a contributing factor to the missed approach. So yes, I'll play this again, and hopefully we'll have some fun stuff to look at again on Monday. And again, for those of you that didn't see it the first time, just sort of stuff on medicine, stuff on robots, stuff on automated systems cleaning plastic out of the ocean. But the main thing is the story of the abandonment of American cities, specifically the slow decay of Los Angeles, which eventually led to one night when the entire city was set on fire and burned to the ground. All right, so there we go. Thanks again for our members for being here through thick and thin. And I'm going to mute the mics, and then I'm going to push the button, Frank, and then we will see you guys on Monday.